Mech pilots, online. BattleTech manuals, online. Long-term memory, offline. All systems bungled. Initiating BungleTech podcast.
In our 19th deployment of BungleTech, my spheroid co-host Michael and I are joined by Denham Hardman from the Mechbay podcast as we talk martial arts in the BattleTech universe. In our Battlefield Outcome Report segment, we share the ominous tale of some brash enough to face the Black Marauder. In our Rule Mistake Discovery segment, we chat about a few different rule mistakes, including one our wise guest had been making. Tisk, 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 Denham. And in our Stories of the Inner Sphere segment, read a sample of BattleTech Legends, selected by our Loremasters. Selah. MechWarriors, slip on that gi, strap on that black belt, and prepare yourself for honorable hand-to-hand combat. It's BattleTech Shido time. Zot!
Primary objective, podcast topic segment, initiating.
Hello, fellow bunglers and any terrified onlookers. Welcome to episode 19 of BungleTech. And this is an exciting episode because I'm joined by a pair of cross-disciplinary experts specializing in BattleTech history, hand-to-hand combat, ancient martial arts, the absolute limits of human physique. First, of course, is co-host of BungleTech, the ever-lovable Nathan. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing amazing, Michael. Oh my god, that intro has surpassed all expectations. The bar has been raised officially. You're the new guy on board every episode going forward.
All right, and our special guest today is the lore master of the Mechbay podcast, Denham. How are you doing, Denham?
Howdy, howdy. I'm doing well.
Today, we're going to be digging into hand-to-hand combat in the BattleTech universe. We're going to listen to a few fight scenes from BattleTech novels. We're going to break them down, try to understand how they work, how are people fighting, why are they doing what they're doing, and then hopefully by the end, we can answer the question of, how does fighting work in the BattleTech universe? But before that, let's get to know our experts a little bit. So we already know who you are, Nathan, but Denham, who the heck are you?
Hey, I'm Denham. I am a CDT agent, for the last 7 years or so. But I've also been playing BattleTech since '86, so probably longer than a lot of your listeners have been alive. I do have my original dice from my old box set that I like to pull out on special occasions. So I'm like, well, when I beat you in this game, I will be beating you with dice that are older than you. So that's always fun. I'm also a lore master on the Mechbay podcast, so I'm sure you've heard me there.
And a super cool radical dude.
Well, thank you. I do run a monthly campaign at our local store, Hangar 18 Hobbies in Cary, North Carolina. Pretty awesome place. We play every Tuesday, but the second Saturday of every month, we have an ongoing drop-in, drop-out campaign, which has been going on for 3 years now. So it is pretty cool.
And aside from the BattleTech side of things, what's your relationship with martial arts? Do you have any background in that?
Yes, I do. I grew up in Fayetteville, so it's a pretty crazy place, military town. Got to keep kids off the streets. I started Taekwondo there at a very young age. I took it under Mechbay, who went on to train the women's Olympic team in Taekwondo. She was amazing. So yeah, I started off in Taekwondo, and then I moved on to Shotokan in college. I also did fencing in college, which is where I started learning about weapons. And that got me into Aikido, because in later levels of Aikido, you start doing Kendo, which is where I learned how to use katana weapons, stuff like that. So I'd say hand-to-hand and sword fighting are probably my strongest aspects.
And Nathan, do you want to, I know, but tell the listeners a little bit about what's your relationship with martial arts.
So I've been doing martial arts for probably around 25 years or something like that. I started when I was a young, little, innocent goth boy being bullied by the world for being different. And so I got into Hapkido. I did Hapkido for a while, and then I transitioned to different martial arts, most prominently Muay Thai. I've done a ton of stuff, but Muay Thai is my home. I have trained people in Muay Thai. I have fought professionally in Muay Thai. I have lived the life of a Muay Thai practitioner. Beyond that, I've also done Kyokushin Karate, Jeet Kune Do, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, and I think some other stuff too that I'm forgetting, but that's all been dabbling. I'm committed to Muay Thai through and through, so really focused on the more fighting style-oriented martial arts, and yeah, I live and breathe Muay Thai. Love those elbows.
And no sword fighting.
And no sword fighting, no sword. I have done, you know what I've done? I've done stunt fighting. So I have learned how to fight with a sword for like television and TV. So not necessarily realistic stuff.
Oh, that's so different too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm serious. Like in TV and movies, you've got to slow the action down so much to make it look like a fun fight. Just because, you know, in real life, sword fighting is just fast, just amazingly fast. So it's not exciting to watch. Lethal, but not exciting. So for a good fight scene on TV or a movie, you've got to slow that action down.
Well, and you know what? It's funny you say that because the weapons that I'm actually martially trained in, real weapons, would be stick fighting, knife, and nunchucks. And nunchucks is just weird because my Muay Thai instructor did Taekwondo originally, so he knew how to use nunchucks and he decided to teach me nunchucks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hell yeah, nunchucks are cool. But when I am training in stunt fighting and like they give me a sword, like a rapier or, you know, a broadsword or something like that, man, am I so self-conscious holding that thing because it's such a big weapon. I feel like it's so easy to hurt someone with these things, even if they're dull. So I myself am going so slow. I'm like, slowly chop, slowly block it and block it. Let's do the routine. And I feel like there is some people that I've trained with that do have martial background. And as soon as I train, like do stunt fighting with people that have martial background, then I'm like, okay, I trust that you have the appropriate reactions to go. And if you hit me, you hit me. Worst case scenario, I get cut. I'm okay with that. But man, yeah, weapons for me, like I'm really familiar with my hands, you know, my elbows, my knees, all that fun stuff. But as soon as like you give me a weapon, I actually feel a little bit naked, unless it's nunchucks. Nunchucks, I'm like, whoa, let's be crazy.
Yeah, like you said, Taekwondo for sure. I done nunchucks there. Not my preferred weapon, probably because one of the first times that I was really seriously training with one, I missed the back around the back grab, and it just whacked me right in the back of the head. Instant tunnel vision, and I'm like, no, I don't like this. Nope, don't like this at all.
My feeling as a non-martialist has always been that nunchucks are better as a fictional weapon than a actual weapon.
Like, I don't want to fight someone with a sword with nunchucks. But if I have nunchucks and someone doesn't have a weapon or it's multiple attackers, I think it's really, really good. But yeah, against a sword or like a bow staff or something like that, I feel like I'm going to be messed up pretty good. But because you can be so creative with them. That's what I like. And they're so surprisingly accurate. That's the crazy thing. They're just so accurate. Like you can knock individual leaves off trees and it just works. I don't know how. Yeah, they're crazy.
Oh, I'll take your word for it.
Trust me. When have I led you astray?
That's right.
And sort of on that topic, is there anything else in sort of the fictional martial arts? Any media or depictions that was like really formative for either of you?
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z, you know. Dragon Ball Z, you know, those days? Yeah, like, come on, man, I want to Kamehameha people. Like, that was pretty formative, but that was so fictional and so beyond stuff. But, you know, one thing that lots of people connect to with Dragon Ball Z is the training ethic. So, you know, train like a Saiyan, sort of that philosophy. So that sort of, in funny ways, you know, has helped me in the intensity of Muay Thai training because, you know, I'm just Vegeta.
Do you wear clothes that are like 200 pounds? Is that what you do?
I myself am 200 pounds. Do I really need I just walk around with my own weight.
Didn't you have one of those? You had one of those like breathing restriction masks for a while, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I train with an elevation training mask. It's basically like training so you can only breathe through a straw. And supposedly it increases your elevation by 20,000 feet from where you are. But I'm in Alberta, Calgary, which is pretty high. So I don't even know if I could survive 20,000 feet up. But man, I tell you, that makes you appreciate. You train like sparring with that thing on or like doing sprints up hills. And then after, when you take it off, to be able to breathe just normally is such a beautiful thing. Really makes you appreciate just being able to breathe.
What about you, Denham?
Any anime or movie that has a good martial arts scene. Cowboy Bebop's got a lot of good action in there. Things like that, I really appreciated growing up. I mean, I've got to say, as a kid who was in his formative years in the early 70s, Star Wars. Like, Star Wars got me into the whole sword fighting thing for sure. You give me a laser sword, and 7-year-old me just goes crazy with it. That and Princess Bride were probably the biggest reasons why I got into fencing and then kendo later on.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I don't think we have any weapon scenes here today, but either way, you're both vastly more qualified for this than I am. Let's get into it. Up first is a dust-up between some noble scions from the book Blood Legacy by Michael A. Stackpool. So let's give it a listen.
Sun Tzu stood quickly, sending his chair flying. Ohiro lunged at him, but Sun Tzu sidestepped the attack. With a flash of gold, he raked the nails of his left hand through the flank of Ohiro's jumpsuit. Ohiro hissed with the pain, but before Sun Tzu could slash him again, Cassandra took her cousin down with a kick to the back of his left knee. She grabbed his outstretched right hand and twisted the arm around in an armbar that forced Sun Tzu's forehead to the carpet. "If you want a nail, I can just break one off." "No!" Ragnar shouted in a horrified voice. Sun Tzu uncoiled slowly and rubbed his right shoulder with his left hand. "If you ever touch me again, witch, it will be the last time." Cassandra gave him a cold stare. "Don't make any promises you can't keep, cousin." Ragnar stepped in between Cassandra and Sun Tzu. "Stop it! You shouldn't be fighting!" Sun Tzu pushed Ragnar aside, slashing open the right sleeve of his jumpsuit. "I don't need you to defend me, pauper prince. You're here in some ridiculous show of putting your father's dwindling realm on equal footing with the great houses of the inner sphere. Your presence is only barely more palatable than that of this Amazon and her brother. Bandits born of a bandit realm, they have less standing than you." Ohiro wiped his bloody hand on the breast of his jumpsuit. "Sharp words from a bastard." "Oh, you wound me, sir," Sun Tzu mocked. "Which is worse in your tradition, Lord Karicha, to be born of unwed parents, or to be born of a union for which a mythical bloodline was created, and one that so shames the participants that they dare not announce it to the world until their eldest child is 5 years old." Ohiro started to take a step forward, but Victor's hand on his arm restrained him. "Don't. He's got claws." Ohiro pulled his arm free and spun on the Prince of the Federated Commonwealth. He grabbed the front of Victor's jumpsuit with his right hand and pulled him up on his tippy toes. "Keep your hands off me!" He thrust his left index finger at Sun Tzu. "That one has insulted my parents! No man may so speak and still live!" Victor's left arm came up and around in a blow that broke Ohiro's grip. His right fist shot forward and hit home over Ohiro's slashed ribs. Ohiro's left hand shot back in an open-handed cuff that snapped Victor's head around. Stars exploding before his eyes, Victor reeled back against the upturned table. He regained his balance for only a second before Ohiro tackled him and they both crashed back over the table. Victor felt Ohiro's hands tighten around his throat and blood pounding in his temples, but he refused to signal any sort of surrender. Again and again, he drove his right fist into Ohiro's ribs and occasionally snaked a left hand up into the side of Ohiro's head. "Enough!" Victor dimly heard the shout above the sound of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. "Ohiro Fusagu!" The Japanese command brought instant cessation of the pressure on Victor's throat. He sucked in a noisy breath, then coughed loudly as Hohiro straightened up over him. Victor took pleasure in seeing Hohiro hug his left arm to his ribs and determined to show no weakness by rubbing his own throat. Forcing a grin onto his face, Victor scrambled to his feet. His grin died immediately.
Tell me, team, how does this fight feel? Is there anything here that stood out to you?
Fight was an emotional fight. This one wasn't about winning or losing. It was about anger. It was about emotions. It was about
people lashing out.
Yeah, I'd say it's emotional.
Bunch of spoiled brats.
To me, this is when I visualize this scene, it's a very old school style kung fu sort of fight scene mixed with some Western sensibilities. For example, you've Sun Tzu who is slashing with his claws. I'm just imagining some sort of snake kung fu or some sort of tiger claw kung fu. I don't know if you guys seen Kung Pao, but whenever the shirts rip, I imagine Betty being like, "Shirt ripper!" I'm just imagining that line over and over again. And then like Denham says, it's an emotional scene. Hohiro's grabbing Victor, choking him, and just taking punches to the face. Boom, boom, and to the body. Boom, boom. The concept of you being able to choke someone full and then take hooks to the face and not phase you, that is sort of like an old school representation of strength. If someone's actually hooking you in the face and you're choking them, one good hook, you're going to release your grip. But anyhow, yeah, this scene shows a lot.
Well, it really shows the different styles that each of because they're all nobles. These are all like nobles of their houses, all of them. They've all been trained by the best teachers their houses have access to. These aren't just tricks and skills that they picked up on the streets. They've been trained by martial artists, and they've all got their own different style, which is apparent in this, where they are all doing different things. And when you're training, you're normally training against people who are using a similar style to you. You get used to, this attack gets blocked by this, and you don't have to think about that. So you can operate more on instinct. Here, it's more by reflex. Sun Tzu's got his carbon-tipped fingernails, which he's using to slash. Hohiro, definitely more Kurita trained, more grappling techniques. And Victor seems like he's more of a boxer. Just pummel people with fists, have a good defense. And they're all using their strengths, but they're all reacting to each other instead of having it well thought out. Again, because it's emotional. Sun Tzu has been insulted, or he feels that he's been insulted. Hohiro's honor has been besmirched, and Victor's just being superior, or trying to play it off like, you can't hurt me, I can take this all day. He's trying to do the whole Captain America thing. So yeah, they've all been trained. They're all definitely skilled, but this wasn't a planned fight. This is just an argument gone wrong.
One thing that really resonates with me that you said there, Denham, was how messy it is. And I've sparred with a ton of different martial arts styles, Sansho, Shotoken karate. I've many different types of kung fu, stuff that is just very different than Muay Thai, Wing Chun, et cetera. And it's always so messy fighting with a different style because the strikes are different. The blocks don't work as effectively. The tools and the weapons still hurt the same, but things just are messy. Yeah, it's never as clean as it is when you're fighting your own fighting style. So anyhow, that really is seen here. And I would like to note that Cassandra is a badass. Of all the people in this scene, Cassandra seems hands down the most badass. And I totally agree with how you're classifying them with styles. I think that's exactly what they are. I would say that we didn't mention Cassandra. I think Cassandra is doing something like Hapkido, kicks and grapples, some sort of combination. Could be Taekwondo, but I think I'd probably lean on more Hapkido. But definitely very cool concept. Different cultures, different styles, and it's a friggin' mess and emotions are high. It's a fun
and the
scene.
Best part is it was not mentioned in the clip, but this whole time, Kai Allard Liao is in the background disarming a bomb. He alone could take out all four of them by himself, no problem. But they're not attacking him, and he's busy with a bomb, so he doesn't care. Like
He's
just
above
totally
this.
doesn't. Yeah,
Kai's
But
just above everything. Kai's just the man. Everybody knows Kai is just the man.
Now,
it's like the kids are fighting again.
now, can we speculate? Ragnar was mostly, trying to make nice here. What would Ragnar have been doing if he was involved in this fight?
I mean, the total Viking. He would, if he really wanted to get into the fight, he would go into berserker rage for sure.
The bloodlust
Yeah, I
would
100%
overtake
agree.
him. Pick up Sun Tzu, break him in half, throw him at two other people.
I don't know if he'd be effective. I think that Sun Tzu, I think that if Sun Tzu was serious in this situation, he's a sneaky guy, so I think he's very capable.
Oh, Sun Tzu was 100% holding back in this fight. It is mentioned later in the book that he was trying to goad people. He's trying to be problematic to make people think less of him so that he could take advantage of that later on. I think that Sun Tzu is a deadly person. I'm betting that he actually has poisons on those fingernails that he could apply very quickly. That if he wanted to be lethal, he could be lethal.
And it is so kung fu-y, right? I love that. I love how kung fu-y is.
And I said there were no weapons in the fights, but do bladed fingernails count as a weapon? Is that
100%?
And
that is augmented fighting right there.
Augmented fighting. Is there anything like that in pure earth martial arts?
Well, in old kung fu movies, 100%, you see people with the not carbon reinforced, but the fingernail blades. That is from the old Sunday kung fu theater that I used to watch growing up. You'd have things like that all the time.
Or even poison fist kung fu technique, right? In the movies where they'd put their hands in poison constantly, and then they build an immunity to poison just by grabbing people with their hands. They could poison them. So definitely lots of weird kung fu-y vibes here, which are super cool and fun. I can just hear the noises as they're fighting. As he's fighting, at least. Yeah. It was why do you sound that way? It's my style.
Your lips do not match your words. I do not understand.
Just another one of his layers of deception.
And now, so maybe this was missed on me, but to me, the emotions stood out to me a lot more than the well-trained fighters. You both have talked about how they clearly have their own styles and they've been training for their whole lives and all that. But to me, mostly I could follow the like you say, the chaos of it. So is this more like a noble duel between, scions of their houses, or is this just like a street brawl?
This is trying to establish a pecking order in this group of peers. Mm-hmm. That's what this is.
Yeah, this isn't a serious combat thing. This is, as Denham says, emotions are high. They have fundamental skills that are different, but this is just about dominating each other. This is just about establishing control. So, Hohiro is just literally, I'm just going to choke you out, Victor. I don't care if you punch me in the face and the ribs. I'm stronger than you, sort of thing. And, Sun Tzu annoying people. I don't know. Everything here is about, as Denham says, establishing the pecking order. And where this exists in the storyline is, the houses have been brought together to try to form an alliance. And this is houses that have been separated for so long. So there's lots of animosity, lots of political bickering and stuff happening behind the scenes. So this is a very Game of Thrones-esque moment. Lots of layers behind. I mean, what Denham says about Kai is a perfect example. Because Kai and Victor at this time, I believe, are already buddies, right?
Yeah.
Denham?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much.
And so if there was a risk, if he actually thought that Victor was in danger, Kai could just wipe everyone in that room if he decided to. It can show, as Denham said earlier, the kids are fighting again, sort of mentality.
Mm-hmm. And so, for you two, lovers of kung fu movies, what was the coolest moment in this fight?
Cool. Again, I think the coolest moment is just Kai disarming a bomb during all this, just not caring. That's it wasn't any of the particular fighting. It was the lack of fighting, lack of concern by Kai, just being, no one's throwing any punches at me. I can just ignore all this.
And do you think you could ever have been that guy? Could you ever imagine being so confident in your own skills that you're just coolly disarming a bomb in the background while a freaking...
Michael, every damn day.
Loremaster
Hell
Denham
yeah.
strolling through the mean streets, listening to there's fights happening, people getting thrown through windows, but no one dare get a smudge on Loremaster Denham's.
Well, it's like that movie, that Jet Li movie, Unleashed, where he's got the collar on, and if he takes the collar off, he just goes berserk. He's in this grocery store, and a fight breaks out, and he just ignores everyone. Everyone's like, "Whoa, weren't you scared?" And he's like, "What? No one was throwing any punches at me, so what does it matter to me? I'm just buying groceries."
What about you, Nathan? Have you ever been that cool?
So first, I would never trust myself with the technical aptitude to try to disarm a bomb. So I have no confidence in that regard. But if there was a fight that broke out, I would be quite comfortable. Once you've sparred and fought enough, it sort of twists your brain a little bit. Like when I get in moments of physical conflict like that, not that I've ever really had to use anything on the street, but I've had people approach me, I don't really get intimidated anymore. I get hungry. That's a weird thing to say, but I actually start like salivating a bit. I'm like, oh, it's go time. So I think that I could be very comfortable in that environment. But if I'm not a good multitasker, so definitely not doing anything else. But I could be sitting in the back and being like, oh, you silly people, let's break this up. Let's not hurt each other. We're going to hurt each other.
I mean, you don't know. Kai, they're not talking about Kai in the scene. Maybe Kai is just salivating all over that bomb right now.
That's how he's diffusing it, just drooling in it. Yeah, maybe.
Yes, please continue the conflict. I need to use the saliva as a conductor.
You never forget your first real fight. It changes everything you think about when it comes to fighting. Like that's when you realize it's not like the movies. It's not like TV. Real fights are scary, and there's a lot of adrenaline afterwards, but it's also way faster than you could ever imagine. Just way faster. Like it's over right about the time that it starts.
Yeah.
And in here, do we think that for all of these characters, they've all had a real fight before? Is there any of them that sort of seem a little bit...
I don't think I don't think I've forgotten his name. Who's the
Ragnar?
Yeah, Ragnar. I don't think Ragnar ever has. I could be wrong about that. I think maybe he's been a little bit more sheltered.
He's probably been trained for it, but he's only ever had sparring with his trainers or whatever.
Yeah, to me, I think that Cassandra, Victor, and Sun Tzu have some sort of real fight experience. I would think that Hohiro and Ragnar wouldn't. They'd have lots of sparring, or Hohiro is obviously very trained, but I think he's a little bit perhaps too disciplined for this generally. But I feel like Sun Tzu has probably walked into like...
Oh, I think Sun Tzu's murdered somebody already by this point.
Exactly, just for the experience. And Cassandra, I feel like, is the type of person that doesn't back down. And Victor, I think, just, has a bit of an attitude. He's a big chip on his shoulder. And he just comes in being like, yeah, I'm not. And he's very a sense of righteousness too, right? So He's definitely going to get in conflicts for sure.
Yeah, he probably as a teenager got into some bar fights at like the Navy bar or something.
Yeah, totally. And his style would have served him well there. And probably people would have held back knowing who he is too, so.
All right, Nathan. Coolest moment in this fight for you?
That's Cassandra's, the kick to the back of Sun Tzu knees and grabbing him to an armbar that forces the head to the ground. I love that because I'm trying to think physically how it works, because if she just kicked him in the back of the knee, likely his arms are going to go forward, so she's not going to be able to actually grab an armbar without leaning over. And so that's a little bit lamer. So how I imagine it is like, as she's going behind, she lands this kick simultaneously. She grabs the arm and then spins him around and slams him, sort of combines a throw into it, arm right into the ground, head into the ground. I just imagine this like really, really cool move. There's this Vietnamese martial art. Frig, what's it called? I forget what it's called, but it's a Vietnamese martial art that uses these really cool throw grapples where like they'll jump on your body and they'll throw your momentum around. And this could totally be something like that. So I like that. And I also like that in this scene, really, I mean, she sort of escalates. She escalates the conflict quite a bit by being this serious in comparison to other people. but she really demonstrates martial skill more than anyone else. Other people are demonstrating different things, but she's like, no, I have martial skill. As Denham says, as Kai's in the background, just being cool. She's like, pay attention to me, Kai. Pay attention. Look what I can do, Kai. I'm so cool.
Senpai. Over here.
No, Cassandra's badass, though, and she's a badass character, too, so.
She is. All through the books.
And were there any sections here that were sort of lame? Nathan, you sort of mentioned, like, maybe how the kick armbar is described, but it's still pretty cool. Or, it implies something cool. Was there any actually lame parts in here?
I mean, to me, the lame part is Hohiro choking Victor and Victor just punching him with hooks in the face and Hohiro not letting go. Like, I can understand it from a narrative perspective, but to me, that's very unrealistic. And I can't visualize taking a good hook to the jaw and not letting go of someone when you're choking them. And choking in general is so lame. It wasn't even using a special choking technique. They didn't specify it. It just was like a basic choke from what I remember. So
yeah, again, it was emotion driven, not tactically driven. So it was just, I am angry at you. I am going to squeeze the life out of you. Not efficient, but when you're blinded by rage, that's what happens. And that shows an inexperience on Hohiro's part for sure.
Shouldn't have done a move that opened you up to being repeatedly punched in the head and wound.
Well, the head punches weren't very often. Like it says that Victor was really laying into the ribs where Sun Tzu had already cut him, and occasionally getting an arm around up over to hit him in the face. So I think it was only the occasional like 2 or 3 hits to the face, but most of the hits were to that already damaged rib.
I remember there was this time I was sparring this ninjutsu guy. So I'm about like 150 pounds, and this guy was like, I don't know, he's like 6'5". He was like 220 pounds or something like that. And we were just play sparring. I mean, we weren't play sparring. Sorry, we were sparring. And he grabs me and he tries to do a submission on me, like a pain submission, a pressure point thing. And pressure points, I find them not very effective, especially on me, because pressure points work well if you are worried about the pain. But if you're not worried about the pain and you just sort of accept the pain of the moment, it can give you lots of opportunities. So literally this guy starts pressure pointing me and holding me down like Hohiro was trying to get Victor. And what I did is I just grabbed his arms and started kneeing him in the ribs over and over and over again until he let go. And it only took 3 knees. It was very, very quick, right? Like pow, pow, pow. And the guy like backed off straight, was like, whoa, okay, this obviously isn't working. I feel like the reason why, even though like I totally agree with Denham, like it's this emotional thing, the only reason why I think it's lame is I think that you likely couldn't take these hits. Like you likely couldn't take if someone's hitting you in the ribs and then sneaking up a hook every once, even just that one hook, boom. I don't think you could take it without releasing. I mean, he could have a really strong chin. And maybe he sees the hook coming and he like bends into it. So maybe he could, but I don't like when I see people just be able to take the hits. I'm strong, I take the damage. That to me is a little bit unrealistic.
You and I are going to disagree a little bit about pressure point focus, though. All I can think of is the guy who is trying to pressure point you was doing it wrong. Again, because just like you just said, people just taking the hit because they're strong. If you're hitting them in pressure points, like pressure points hurt, yes, but that's only level 1. When I was doing the Shotokan, I trained a lot in pressure points, and pain is like the lowest level. Like that's the intimidation factor of a pressure point. The real power of a pressure point is that you're hitting nerve clusters. So level 1 is pain, level 2 is unconsciousness, level 3 is death. Like if you hit a pressure point hard enough in the right spot, it sends a shock up the nerve cluster to your brain and it just stops your heart. If you're doing proper pressure point attacks, it's not to make a person say, ow, you're hurting me, stop. It's to stun their brain and they just can't do anything. That's the real power of pressure points. So
if Victor had been hitting the pressure points,
I agree with you that
it might have been more effective.
If Victor had hit the pressure point over the ribs, it would have just stunned Hohiro, and Hohiro would have stopped choking him because his hands wouldn't have worked properly. So pressure points are dangerous, like really, really dangerous if used properly.
Sun Tzu probably knows the pressure points.
The ultimate pressure point. Eyes. Eyes. That's not a pressure point, that's my eyes. It's the best pressure point. Yeah.
It hurts, doesn't it?
With this, I disable your vision. Up next is an entire Sibco getting taught by Joanna in Way of the Clans by Robert Thurston.
Endo walked around Aiden. He was obviously trembling, though it was more likely because of the frigid temperature than fear. No doubt he did feel fear, like Aiden, but it would be unsibbed to show it, especially to a warrior like Joanna. Endo opened his mouth as if to speak, but Falconer Joanna's scornful glare made him think better of it. "Remember not to address me," she said softly. Then, with a punch that was not at all telegraphed, she hit him in the stomach. Not just hit him, but dug her fist into his extra flesh as hard as she could, while grabbing his hair and yanking his head back. She was still wearing her metal-studded falconry gloves. Recalling his own pain when Joanna had gut-punched him, Aiden winced to think how the blow must hurt Endo. "You are allowed to hit me, Surratt." Surratt was a loathsome word, the name of a disgusting monkey-like creature. "Hit me, Surratt! Hit me!" Endo reared back and, grunting, attempted a roundhouse right that, if successful, would have addled Joanna's brain for a moment. But she was too quick for him. She blocked the punch and dug her fist into the exact same place on his belly. Endo's face turned red. She pushed him away. He stumbled backward, gasping for breath. Standing straight, Falconer Joanna ceremoniously removed her gloves and casually tossed them onto the ground. "I do not need these, not against nestlings like you." She squared away, her body loose and ready. Her eyes scanned the still-standing members of the Sibco, who had now edged together. Passed out, Endo was splayed out on the ground in front of them. Suddenly, Joanna ran at the group yelling, "This is a free-for-all fight, you drooling fools!" She hit Brett with a forearm chop across the bridge of his nose, then headbutted Time while kicking back at Orilna, making contact in a spot that might have been more painful to a male, but nevertheless made Orilna double up. "Do you still suck the metal teeth, cadets?" Joanna yelled. "Fight me!" Both Aiden and Marth accepted the challenge. Aiden leaped at Falconer Joanna, his arms flailing as a diversionary maneuver. She brought up her arms to block the expected blow, but at the last minute he drew his arms in, lowered his head, and butted her just below the breasts. He'd been aiming for her stomach, so when his head hit her ribcage, he was momentarily stunned. Marth, in the meantime maneuvering from a position to Joanna's left, missed a grab at her neck, but managed to get hold of her upper arm. As Marth twisted the arm back, Joanna laughed. "Tug and tussle do not work here, whelp!" With no trick, no diversion, with just a demonstration of her own strength, she brought her arm back to its former position. Then, moving so quickly that Marth was caught by surprise, Joanna flung her body at Marth, knocking the cadet backward with a shoulder blow that caught her at the tip of her chin. As Marth reeled back, eyes dazed, the now recovering Aiden saw she was definitely out of the fight. With a yell that would have frightened an ordinary person, he rushed at Falconer Joanna. The cry did not, of course, faze Joanna. Leaping, letting out a scream that did scare Aiden, she sent him dizzy with a kick to his head. Around him, the Sibco had come to life, and as he fell, they all tried to pounce on the Falconer. Reacting quickly to evade their smothering assault, she managed to make contact with her fists, elbows, knees, feet, and head, all her destructive body parts dealing blows that bruised, stung, and pained, even injured her attackers. wading back into the melee once she was free, Joanna quickly dispatched the remaining Sibkin and soon stood over a groaning, squirming mass of cadets. She stared around her, her cruel eyes daring any of the downfallen to try again. Aiden tried again. He stood and rushed toward her with all the strength left in his legs. As he reached her, she brought her forearm up to ward off a weak blow that he'd intended as a feint. But then he brought around his other arm slower than he wanted, and she dealt him a punishing backhand right without bothering to ward off his attack. Another couple of solid punches, and Aiden was down on the ground again. Above him, her eyes sent out the dare again. Aiden dared. Pulling himself to his feet, swaying from side to side, he clasped both hands together and running forward, managed to hit Joanna on the side of her face with the joined hands. The impact seemed to surprise the falconer, who had arrogantly made no attempt to defend herself against his onslaught. She stumbled sideways, but regained her footing and turned to him smiling. The smile was peculiar. Though her eyes retained their scornful cruelty, her smile was pleased. It seemed almost appealing. Joanna walked toward him, the smile becoming friendly. She held out her hand. "I see you do not like me, cadet. Good. I admire your tenacity." With her outstretched hand, she took his and held it for a moment. Then, releasing his hand without rearing back or giving any indication that a punch was coming, she jabbed him in the nose with her other hand, and he felt something break. She hit him again in the same place, and the pain was so bad he could not see straight. Rather, he could see too well, in too many images. The third punch sent him back to the ground. He looked up to see Falconer Joanna standing over him. "Are you through yet, nestling?" He tried to sit up, and she gently pushed him down. This time, he stayed there.
So this is quite a different feel to the fight, at least in my opinion. So what do we think of this? How does this fight feel?
I really liked this fight, like, a lot.
Yeah, Joanna is so badass.
Why? You like the children getting beat up? Is that the...
Always. I've got children, so yeah. Everybody gets to get away with beating up children. So again, like, a Sibco is young. Like, these are young kids. The way of the clans is all about combat. So they are trained from a very young age to be merciless and find out who's got the fighting spirit. And that's what this is about a trained warrior, a mech warrior. That is the pinnacle of the class society with the clans is a fighter. Joanna is tasked with trying to figure out if this Sibco is even worth it or not. And she is a badass. Like, there is nothing that these kids can do to her, and she knows it. Like, the training that she has been through, they are so far beneath her that oftentimes she just stands there and takes a hit just to see what kind of, like, strength that they've got. And it is always found lacking. She is a Jade Falcon warrior, and these are just Sib cadets. They're nothing.
So I completely forgot that these were children. I was imagining, like in their 20s, but you're right. They're like 10 to 12, right?
I would say like the early teens, like 12 to 15 is the age of this group.
And Joanna's like 22 or something like that, and she's just kicking the crap out of these teenagers.
Yep, but these teenagers have been training their entire lives. They think that they're badass. Mm-hmm. They do, but they're not. The things that Joanna has already been through in her life up to this point, like, there is nothing that they could pin her down and gouge one of her eyeballs out, and she wouldn't flinch about it. She would just destroy them. Like, pain means nothing to her at this point, nothing at all. So she has zero fear, zero hesitation, zero trepidations about fighting this group, because she knows on a cellular level that she is just better than them.
Yeah, and to me, this scene, like, if the first scene really felt kung fu-y to me, this scene really feels karate. Like, Joanna just felt very direct, in control, no wasted movement, creating openings, striking immediately. I just imagine I don't know what officially their style would be and what it would incorporate, but anyhow, this feels very, very, very karate.
Oh, 100%. She is in control at all times. 100% control. She never loses her cool at all. Every attack she makes is a precise pinpoint to cause damage. The first person that she hit him twice in the exact same spot. Like talk about pressure points right there. That person passed out. That's what a pressure point attack does. He just passes out. And then every attack, when they all attack her all at once, every single kick she makes, every single punch she makes, she's attacking the bridge of the nose, she's attacking the throats, she's doing attacks to cause maximum pain or actual damage. These children, many of them will end up in the hospital after this for recovery. And that's nothing to her. If she kills a few of them, that's just part of the clans. This is how that works. They weren't worthy, and this is what she's testing. She's testing to see who is worthy, and only Aiden is the one who keeps trying to get up. She could have easily killed him, but the fact that he didn't give up is the only reason why she saw, that spark, that maybe he can be a Jade Falcon too, maybe, and she's willing to give him that chance. And unfortunately for him, getting the attention of a Jade Falcon warrior, yes, it's the only way you're going to rise up in the ranks, but it means that the rest of your life is going to be hell.
And that really reflects, martial training in general. I think, sometimes people in martial studios, they'll come in, they'll start, and the teacher will start paying extra attention to them, and they will feel almost a little bit bullied. They'll feel like it's unfair, but that extra attention, teachers going harder on you, generally and most commonly, that means that they really see potential in you. They're trying to push you to your maximum level. So I know training in Thailand, for example, if you're just relegated to a bag all day, that's really, really important bag work, don't get me wrong. But if the teacher's pushing you hard, if the teacher's making you drop, that is really, really a courtesy. I once sparred with this guy who had something he's a Lumpini champion, had 200 something fights. And we just clinched for, I think, 15 minutes straight. And he dumped me every 20 seconds. I was a baby in comparison to this guy. He was just beating the crap out of me. But, he dumped me, I'd get back up. He dumped me again, get back up. He was just showing me all this stuff, trying all these different techniques on me playing. And it was such a privilege to just get my ass beat so bad. And there was no animosity. It was just about okay, you're here to be serious. I'm going to show you. You keep getting up. Great. I'm going to show you more techniques. I'm going to have more fun with you.
And so is this sort of thing, do we think this is necessary? These clan warriors would not be as good as they are unless they were put through this? Because I assume basically every one of these warriors, Joanna at one point went through this as well. Is this necessary to become the fighters that they are?
Necessary? No, not at all. But Jade Falcons are insane. They have a bloodlust. I mean, there's a reason why the two clans fighting over Terra are Wolf and Jade Falcon. Jade Falcon are tenacious, and this is why. This is their training. This is just a random Sibco that she is evaluating. That's all she's doing here, and it's so ruthless and so bloody, and there's so much damage done. And all she's doing is looking for, one or two children that have the ability to maybe become a warrior down the line. And it doesn't if any of them got killed, it wouldn't matter because that's how the genetics program works. A clan warrior to die gloriously in battle is their ultimate goal because they're not having children. They don't need to survive the battle. If they do something awesome and they die in battle, their genetics are already on file. It just gets added to the next pool. So death is truly meaningless. It's just, are you a warrior or are you not?
Yeah, and she's really evaluating the heart of the warrior here, the spirit. Because that's one thing that is hard, very difficult to train. And you'll see this
you can't. You can't train that. It is or it isn't.
And so this is a good test of that because once again, she is crazy good. She's beating the bejesus out of all these people, but some of them are able to not give up, to stand up, to still look at insurmountable odds and fight, which is really, the clan way in many ways. So I disagree with Denham in saying it's not necessary, because everything the clans do is necessary. They're perfect.
I meant like a morally like is it necessary? No, for Jade Falcon, it's absolutely, and I'm not even singling out Joanna. Like, Joanna's awesome. She is a fantastic fighter, but any of the warriors that were present with any of them could have done the exact same thing and would have done the exact same thing as her. She was not being special in any way. That's just how the training warriors are. All of them. Like you said, she went through that exact same thing. She wasn't anything super special. Like, she was not singled out until she showed that she had a fighting spirit as well. So this isn't even Joanna being like super awesome Joanna. This is just Joanna being a clan Jade Falcon warrior. That's it.
And there is kindness here too. There's the kindness
Well, yeah.
and the practicality. Like, she takes off her gloves, which and then she starts punching people in the faces, right? Like, she doesn't punch anyone in the face until she takes off her gloves, and her gloves have like spikes on them, right? So it's like
they actually have spikes on both, like inside and outside. Every time she punches someone with those spiky gloves, it hurts her too. Oh, the Jade Falcons have some serious S&M vibes going on.
This entire scene has changed again.
It's changed again. She played with children. I got to take these gloves off. This is
exactly. This is wrong on so many levels.
All right. So just wrapping up, what was the coolest moment of this fight? Nathan.
Ooh. I like lots of the things Joanna does here, but I sort of like, probably my favorite moment is when, Aiden charges, she does a quick block, then she does like a backhand Bruce Lee style, like, whoosh! And then from there, he tries to get up and she just goes, punch to the face. And then he's still there, then punch to the face, and the punch to the face. I just love sort of that moment, because it really shows Aiden's heart and also Joanna being sort of ruthless to him. And I've seen situations in sparring, this is the weirdest thing, where sometimes people are getting hit hard in the head, so they'll get hit, and rather than actually retreat, their natural instinct is they sort of stand up taller. And I've had people, when I've been sparring them, literally stand up tall and drop their hands. It's like a sign of like dominance or control. Like, they're trying to assert themselves physically on you. And so really you have Aiden trying to assert himself. That's his natural sort of inclination. And Joanna's just like, okay, boom, I'll give you another, I'll give you another, I'll give you another. Then, he gets up again and she goes up to him. She could smoke, but she's like, no, you're done. Push. Like, I don't know. That scene to me, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And what about you, Denham? Coolest part of the fight?
Yeah, for this fight, it's just how efficiently every single one of her attacks hit a pressure point, hit a major part of the body to incapacitate the rest of these would be warriors.
Just over and over again.
Like that backhand that Nate said, not even looking, just a backhand that's a perfect hit because she knows where this person's going to be, where they're coming from, and not even looking, backhand, boom, drops them. It's just, it just shows off her level of experience just fighting. And this isn't even mech combat. This is just martial arts, like outside of a mech. How good is she in a mech?
All right. And anything sort of lame in this fight? Anything that took anyone out?
I really like this scene. I can't think of any negatives in this. The author knew what he was doing here, for sure.
To me, they're the lamest moment, and I just hate this in general, and this is takes place in another fight too. The double-handed grab swing, the Star Trek attack, I'm putting my hands together now and swing, for more power. That is just so old school and so part of this time when people would think that would actually be effective. When I visualize this scene, I don't actually think that any of the kids know anything. It feels to me like the kids, like, for example, how Aiden comes and he's swinging his hands randomly. Like, I'm imagining that whole Bart and Simpson scene, like, I'm going to swing my hands, and if you walk into me, it's your own fault, right? I don't see the skill in the Sibco, I see just their heart. But Joanna in general, everything she does is super cool. This would be a really cool scene to see choreographed too. Like I could imagine this like being very easy to choreograph in a fighting scene. It would be quick too. It'd be like a 20-second scene, like ba 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 ba, and she would just seem so badass. Yeah, it's cool. It's a neat one. It's a neat one.
Yeah,
overall,
that double-handed one. Like when you're exhausted, it feels like lifting your arms is hard. And if you grab your arm with your other arm, it actually feels like you can get more strength out of it. But it's not an effective attack, especially here, which is why Joanna just stood there.
Yeah.
Just stood there and said, okay, this is where he's at. How much strength does he still have left in him? And she was surprised by how much strength that he had. But she made no move. Like, she could have taken him down 18 different ways before he got to her. But she just stood there to see what does he have left. So I think that's what that scene was trying to illustrate. Is that he has no skill at this point. He's literally just pulling up any dregs of reserves that he has left, and then she's going to test that. How much strength is behind that punch? I'm just going to stand here and I'm going to take whatever he throws at me because he can't actually hurt me. Is what she's thinking.
Yeah, that's super fair.
And she's right.
Actually. Yeah, you're right. Because her taking the hit and seeing, oh yeah, he's doing a double-fisted Star Trek attack on me. Her taking the hit, wrong universe, kid. That is super cool. And that shows her foresight. So I guess, I just let me clarify, I think that attack is lame. I don't think it happening is lame. I think that attack in general is lame. But anyhow, the scene in general,
I
holistically
assume that
cool.
the Sibcos are brought up on videos of like old Star Trek and Star Wars and anime, like so much anime.
Dun, 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 dun. That's like always playing in their training.
Yeah.
All right. Moving along to our last fight for today. This is going to be Don Moffat against a mountain of an elemental. From Star-Lord by Donald G. Phillips.
As Dawn descended from the dais to meet stern Chapman, the lighting came up slightly. Chapman was, beyond a doubt, the best elemental warrior in the Steel Vipers. His genetic heritage and codex adorned with numerous victories. Even at Devil's Bath, he had managed to take out 3 Comstar battle mechs before being knocked unconscious himself. He let fall his ceremonial robe and stood before her in knickers and t-shirt that emphasized his towering height and the powerful muscles of his body. To his height and weight, this elemental was the equivalent of 2 warriors. Behind him, almost dwarfed by his comrade, was MechWarrior Thibaudue. If Dawn survived the contest with Chapman, he would be up next to break her. The elemental warrior, a virtual mountain of muscle compared to her, wasted no time. With his speed almost shocking in a man of his size, he swept to Dawn's right, forcing her to twist to meet his attack. But Dawn was quick enough, her sharp chop hitting his right shoulder with a resounding crack. Though the blow would have felled any normal warrior, with Chapman, there was more noise than damage. Himself a product of genetic engineering, the elemental towered over her, and at twice her mass and pure strength, he merely took the hurt. Pivoting from her blow, he jammed backward at her with a powerful movement of his elbow. The pain was intense, but the effect on her balance was the key. She saw his left leg sweep out, but her move to evade wasn't fast enough. The leg hit her right shin and sent her flying backward like a load of bricks. Reacting almost totally by reflex, she rolled away, just missing a pounding with both of his fists balled together. They struck the floor near her like a jackhammer, and Chapman winced in the pain from the impact but did not break off. Dawn swung her hand in a chop to the right eye, blinding him momentarily. As blood streamed from his eye, he lifted his cupped fist together again and jumped toward her, his whole massive body weight behind the assault. Dawn kicked hard with both feet, hitting him in the chest and deflecting the attack, but at the same time rolling to one side and not seeing where he fell. When she turned to where she thought he should be, he wasn't there. At that moment, his kick found its mark on the back of her head. The impact lifted her body up and forward. Her eyes seemed to be looking down a long, dark tunnel, while in her ears was a deep buzzing. She felt the floor slap her face hard, but her arms and legs seemed helpless to block the fall. There was a salty taste in her mouth as she used the last reserve of her strength to roll over and stare up at the lights that glared down on her. Dizziness and pain racked her head as she staggered drunkenly to her feet. Chapman moved quickly around to face her and to deliver the final blow. She saw it coming, and her only response was to leap at what seemed to her like a living wall of flesh and muscle tissue. She half fell, half punched as Chapman's furious fist slammed into her right cheekbone. Her blow did nothing, a mere bruise. His cut her cheek, and she heard the sound of cracking. A tooth had shattered under the punch. She dropped to the floor like a rag doll, conscious, but no longer able to fight.
All right, so this was a very different fight. This is finally meeting the inner sphere versus the clans coming together, fighting, dominance, all that. How does this fight
It's
feel?
actually clans versus clans still.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
But it's a mech warrior versus an elemental.
Yes.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
A mech warrior versus an
Yeah.
elemental. Clan versus
Clanner.
bigger
Exactly.
clan.
Bigger clan.
If I were a betting man, this fight would turn out exactly how I would have predicted.
One-sided start to
Oh,
finish.
100%. 100%. It is realistic in the way that Dawn had no real chance in my mind against this. Her attack to his shoulder that would have dropped like any other warrior. I didn't understand that. I like a fight that I can see in my head, and a lot of her attacks don't make sense to me from a physics standpoint. She had the chop to the shoulder that the author made a big deal of, which I don't normally think a karate chop to the shoulder is an effective attack. And then
She's chopping the same place that like the Vulcan nerve pinch lands.
well, that's more the neck then, or the nerve cluster. I would have phrased it differently. Like that's an attack against a nerve cluster is a valid attack, except for when you can't reach the nerve cluster because of the mountain of muscles, obviously shown off by the t-shirt and knickers. You know.
He's just so muscly.
Yes,
he's so
muscly.
huge
And then
so
her
muscly.
other big attack is when he lunged at her and she did a double kick to his chest to knock him back. Like they're both in the air, and he outmasses her by 2 or 3 times. Physically, it's not going to go well for her at all.
You don't drop kick people twice your size. Yeah. So that's one of the things that stood out to me is like Chapman is constantly being described as so huge and like unnaturally fast
Correct.
for his size.
Yes, and that's important is the speed, because like what are the ways that Dawn could have won? Well, not a straight up fight, because I didn't see any real skill with Chapman at all, and I don't think he needs skill because he's so big. Like his crushing attacks, just like the attack that Nate doesn't like, the double fist like pounding down, doesn't need skill. He just has the power. And when fighting against other elementals, it's whoever is the strongest, because they're all big and they're all strong. It's like Rams at that point, like which one has the bigger horns. So a contest of strength is totally legitimate. Her only chances would have been like to blind him, which she tried to do ineffectively. I would have gone for the throat, take away his ability, not choking him, but to punch him in the throat, make his throat swell up so he can't breathe. The problem with that attack is that he is so fast that her getting into a position to do that would have brought her into his much longer reach with his much stronger muscles and his much, much greater mass. And it would have played out badly for her that way too. She would have had to have gotten so lucky and then also been able to escape.
Maybe if Chapman's giant heart had given out right that moment.
Well, yeah, so that's the only real way that she could have won, is to just run around and kept ahead of him. But again, he was described as being unnaturally fast. So if he caught up to her, it still would have ended the same. I think the best way she could have won this fight is a large caliber armor piercing round from behind, because he's fast enough that if he saw it and she didn't hit him somewhere lethal, he probably could have gotten to her before she fired again. It is a bad fight for her.
What do you think, Nathan? Do you concur?
Well, this fight is like, every fight has a different aesthetic, right? So the first fight, once again, is the Kung Fu style. Second fight really feels like this karate choreographed scene. This feels like a combination of like a WWE, like a fantastical wrestling fight combined with an anime fight. Like how like Chapman just like disappears. I'm just imagining him like phase in, like, oh, he's not there. Then you see him phase behind, then whoosh, pa! Yeah. And then she gets like kicked in the shin flying back. Ah! Like there's just, it's so anime to me. But yeah, Dawn, like, I think I understand why Dawn did her approach because, of how she is as a character, and she's a Steel Viper, so she's very direct. She's like, I'm just going to fight you with my full heart and strength. I will prevail. But that sort of won't play well against someone who is this big and this strong. Only move that she does that's effective, like Denham says, is the eye. Like the chop to his chest is stupid. The double drop kick into his chest is stupid. But I mean, in that moment, she's reacting. She's like, oh my God, it's coming. I'm going to drop kick. Like, I think the fight goes out of control really fast for her, right? Because Chapman is quite vicious. So definitely, this is included in our selection of fights because I love the book Star-Lord. But this book is not well liked by the BattleTech community. So even including this as a fight that represents BattleTech is a little bit sketchy. But yeah, I love it regardless. So yeah, I pretty much agree with everything Denham's saying, 100%. It's a losing battle with her strategy, and then she still had to fight another guy after two.
Right, exactly. Like that would have been her first of two fights. But that is the clan way. I mean, it's might makes right. Whoever wins is correct in any sort of argument, and in things like this. I liked it because there were no tricks. Like it played out exactly how you would imagine it would. Because as you know, Nate, if you have two people who are of roughly equal skill, the larger, faster, stronger one is going to win, unless there's a separate outside balancing, like cheating of some sort. Like in an even fight, not a fair fight because it is not fair. But in an even fight, the larger, taller, stronger, faster person wins, always. If Dawn had used unconventional tactics to win, if she had like grabbed dirt or debris from the floor and blinded him from range, and then while he couldn't see, gone in and hit him in the throat, if he had won, she would have been disgraced as Desgra. Because she was trying to do unfair tactics and she lost. But if she had done the exact same thing and won, she would have been commended for thinking outside of the box. Because it's not how you get there. The ends justifies the means in many clan combat. If you win, whatever you did to win can be justified. But if you lose, then whatever you did was just your lack of skill or unhonorable.
Lack of honor.
I think what would be really interesting to see is to see this fight after Dawn returned from the Inner Sphere. Because this is when she's still pure Steel Viper. She hasn't been influenced by her interaction with the Inner Sphere at all yet. And so she's fighting this like a Steel Viper. And I think coming back, if she fought this again, she would fight it differently. She wouldn't be so direct. She'd be more evasive. And she'd have a better chance. But still, the odds are hands down stacked against her.
I totally agree with that.
Right. And what was the coolest moment of this fight? Denham?
It wasn't a super cool fight.
You didn't like the giant flying double overhead hammer fist into the ground?
I liked when she got distracted because he was so fast where she's like, okay, well, he's over here. Oh, he's not there. And then all of a sudden, like a blow to the back of the head puts her in that tunnel vision, much like the first time that I really tried to use nunchucks. So I could feel exactly how she felt in that moment. So I guess that was cool that I was able to use experience from my past to put myself into her shoes.
Oh wow, a realistic depiction of a
Yeah,
concussion.
that's right. She's gonna feel that tomorrow.
All right, what about you, Nathan?
This fight is so weird in general. Like when I break it down, it makes less and less sense every time. That's why I gotta visualize an anime scene. But I'm just trying to visualize, like, so when Dawn dodges and she jumps and she goes, hiya, and chops his chest, and it's completely ineffective. But then Chapman pivots and elbows Dawn. So why, first, is a pivot even necessary? So I'm trying to visualize what this is like. So, let's say the chop has hit the chest. Maybe as it hits the chest, he lets the left shoulder drop back because that's what's been hit, his left. And then he slides forward and shoves like a straight elbow right in her chest, right? Boom. Like that sort of like martial motion right there, absorbing the impact. Not that there was any, but her slight force, taking it, shifting your shoulders back and using the momentum to throw an elbow in. I think that is something that, to make sense of it, I have to visualize it as being cool. So there you go.
It's hard to visualize exactly how this fight is playing out, and that to me defines what's a good fight scene to a bad fight scene. In my mind, is how how easy it is for me to visualize the exact sort of action, and writers who have more experience in martial arts tend to describe it a lot better. Like it makes sense. The flow makes sense. And I honestly don't know what this author's background is in martial arts, but this fight scene felt lacking detail to me.
But there were so many things happening.
Hammer fist.
Just a series of things happened one after the other. This would be one of those, like, not one of the cool like kung fu fights with great choreography. This would have just been like rapid cuts between like huh, ha.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like it's more of a graphic novel.
Maybe like, oh,
like you get the individual frames, not
wham, pow.
Not the actual action. Yeah, I can see that.
This guy just read the Baki manga and he's reading and he's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I gotta incorporate this.
Someone saw a fight scene in a comic book, and this is how they're trying to describe it.
All right. So just in wrapping up, sort of looking back at all three of these scenes, very different scenes. This is a broad spectrum we've got here.
That was a good selection.
So,
I agree.
How what does this tell us about fighting in BattleTech? Like what does it mean? How do they do it?
So BattleTech in general tries to encompass the feel of, say, medieval England, where the MechWarriors are knights. It is a martial class, even more so in the clans. So anybody who is a MechWarrior pilot is expected to also be able to hold their own outside of a mech. A warrior is a warrior, and they should be able to fight in or out of a battle mech or whatever their preferred fighting unit is. So things like this are important to show, your favorite characters are badasses even without a mech. So it's important to illustrate that a warrior's spirit transcends any augmentations.
Yeah. And that, they are badasses. That's sort of like what a lot of these fights are. The first one was definitely, like you said, like really about establishing dominance and stuff. But in some ways, all of these fights are about showing like how badass a character is, or how a character, despite being a badass, can still get owned by someone who's even more.
Like Kai.
Like Kai. Kai's above it all.
And I know there's a lot of people who don't like Kai because of his oh, and you know what? I think according to the author, I think his name is pronounced K.
Oh yeah,
it's just that I've read it for so many decades as Kai. It's hard for me to switch that over. So Stackpole, if you're listening and it is K, I apologize. We'll pronounce it however you want to. You just let me know.
Add it to the pile of bungles.
That's right. But I like his character because he was such a badass, and when I was reading it, I was in that proper age, that teenage years type of thing. A little bit of hero worship there, which I know that's what a lot of people have a problem with, but I don't. I think his Kai's character is awesome.
He is cool. He has some epic moments, man.
And what about you, Nathan? What do these fights mean to you? What did you learn about the BattleTech universe?
That is it's such a big question. I've been thinking about this a lot because BattleTech And first I want to say, like, these are like original sort of the fiction fight scenes that have been represented. There's newer stuff. Like, I remember this story recently that I read in a Stories of the Inner Sphere segment written by Jason Hanza. It's the one that I think it takes place on Galatia. Anyhow, he depicts martial arts and combat in there, and it is very MMA now. Like, it's very much a product of its time. But that's what the BattleTech universe is. This is stuff that was written in the 80s and the 90s. So this is a product of its time. This is when we didn't have YouTube yet. There was so much bullshit out there. Black Belt magazine was the coolest thing. You could get that and you'd see all these techniques. This is influenced by lots of classic martial art movies and influenced by the 90s. But what I love about that creating is, even though this is fiction, this becomes the truth, the canon of the universe. So basically, in BattleTech is a place where people can train to a martial skill level where they can fight with like martial perfection, just like Joanna does. You know, see the attacks coming, sidestep, do the perfect blow to knock someone down. You can get to a skilled level where this stuff actually works effectively, where it's not necessarily as inherently messy as normal combat situations are. It can be messy, obviously, but there's the ideal of martial arts exists in the BattleTech universe. That, you know, 90s Black Belt magazine vibe exists in the BattleTech universe. And I love that because I love all martial arts. Muay Thai is my style, but I think all martial arts conceptually are super cool, and they're different philosophies, they're different theories. So imagining a universe where you could fight with Shotokan karate as a base, and you were fighting with the Shotokan ideal. You know, one strike takes someone out. You have the vision, you see the opening, block, pow. You know, you can imagine someone with judo, you know, someone really strong. And then it can even go into this like superhuman realm with the elemental, where you've trained so well and your bulk has somehow been perfected in a way that it's not slowing you down. That you've trained yourself where you're big, you're huge, yet you're still fast. Yeah, oh no, it's cool. This has such a breadth of combat.
And BattleTech was created in the 80s, so that whole kung fu theater vibe, like everybody who wrote for BattleTech had watched stuff like that. So it's going to seep in. You know, you write what you know. So if that was exciting to you, that's what you're going to write about when you do combat scenes. Now, can I be completely honest, Nate?
Yes.
When you first came to me about the whole martial arts in BattleTech, I honestly thought you meant martial arts in battle mechs, which I think is a whole nother topic that we can cover with that. Because if you are a good fighter outside of a mech and you're really, really well trained, I think, you know, there are a couple scenes in different books that illustrate, you know, the 1 in a billion people who are so in tune with their mech that they can pull off crazy things with neuro helmets and, you know, the mech gyroscopes and stuff. So I admit I did a little bit of preparation for that before we got into this. So if ever you want to revisit this, I am all for battle mechs and martial arts.
Heck yeah.
We'll have to cover the Kai scene and like the pass against the Jade Falcon.
Right? Get that hatchet up there. Come on.
That's
one
an
at
epic
a time,
moment.
all at once. Bring it. Oh, he was so cool.
That's one of the coolest moments in BattleTech, hands down. And then when he meets the elementals after and they laugh about how much they would have bid to take him.
I know.
They're like, oh, I would have bid 3 points or whatever. It's like, oh, just for me? I'm just innocent little Kai. So cool.
Well, it sounds like part 2 of the Martial BT BattleTech Martial Prowess episode's going to have to be planned out. But for now, thank you so much, Denham and Nathan, for walking me through some fights. I don't know any about this, so I learned a lot today.
Can we end it with some signature hi-yes? You know?
Hi-ya!
Oh, man.
Ka-cha!
Give us your best.
Ow! Wham! Zot!
Zot. Oh, there you go. That's how you finish it. Zot. That elemental is so totally zotting the crap out of Dawn.
All right, on to the next segment. This is Professor Michael presenting The Sphere We Live In. For the yarn folk, life revolves around the great families, and while belonging to one's family is a source of great pride, it is also a great responsibility. Each of them is obligated to protect and defend their family at any cost. Most will carry weapons openly, and some practice an intricate collection of martial arts known as sistema. Based on ancient teachings long predating their self-imposed exile, sistema focuses not only on physical training of the self, but spiritual training with others and extreme coordination. Sistema practitioners usually train together from a young age, where they learn to act as one, reflexively following each other as though they shared an initiative, and observe how, when one of them is struck, they all cry out. Now you know about the sphere we live in.
Tertiary objective. Battlefield outcome report segment. Initiating.
This is Nathaniel Smithson, Iron and Boots on the Ground, with a special investigative segment covering a rumored battle taking place in the Outworld Alliance. Viewers, due to the sensitive nature of this encounter, the exact details and identities of those involved have been withheld. The content you are about to hear was recorded across various locations over the period of the month.
As can be seen behind me, a vicious battle has recently taken place. In the distance, a headless mech, which... apologies, listeners. I just have a pounding headache suddenly. As I was saying, a headless mech, scattered ebony-colored armor, and other signs of destruction can be seen behind me, fighting having recently taken place with an unknown objective. My Omer can still be seen dripping behind us, telling the tale of an epic battle, highlighted by a patch of darkness? Scorched earth? It's hard to explain exactly, but it certainly is ominous. Who was the victor of this battle? Who was defeated? That noise, do you hear that? Do you hear that noise? Something feels off. My head. What's that? Did I just... Oh no. Oh, this damned headache. My apologies, listeners. I can't continue. Nathaniel Smithson signing off for now. You 5 minutes, no more. The patient has been unstable this week. I doubt you'll get anything from him. Bash the door a few times when you want out. Commander Atlas, is that you? It's me, Nathaniel Smithson. You contacted me saying you had information regarding the recent Outworld Alliance incident. Commander, please, we don't have a lot of time. Is there anything you know? Anything you can...
No, I do know, but I don't know.
Sir, if there is any information, anything you saw...
His crystals oozing.
Commander, think clearly. The battlefield was littered with destruction. A headless mech, tattered limbs, yet no remnant of your target. What were you targeting for destruction? What was your mission?
Destruction. No. Moving, phasing, opening and shutting. Missiles in, missiles out. It doesn't matter. When about, windows open, windows closed. All is well in our souls.
Commander Atlas, get a hold of yourself. Don't you want the world to know? You contacted me.
No, not me. It wants you to know.
Atlas, I don't understand.
I do. I will just like you. No. I'll kill you. I'll save you.
Help! I need help! Get me out of here!
Thank you for seeing me today. Am I correct to say you were close with Commander Atlas?
Well, we had some good days and more than a few great nights.
How would you explain him?
Confident, burly, good leader. At least before,
Yes. I'm sorry. I was saddened and shocked to see him in such a state.
It happens, I suppose. We've all seen MechWarriors down on their luck in similar states. Well, no, actually that's unfair. I've never seen someone quite so bad.
Did he share anything about his mission to you?
Just that he was finally gonna make a name for himself and earn a significant sum while doing it. Standard mercenary stuff. Simply by taking a job superstitious fools were walking away from.
Is there anything else you can tell me? Anything he shared once returning?
He called me one night after the mission before he checked into the facility, speaking in gibberish. I barely believed it was him. He scared me. Kept on ranting about seeing but not seeing, something about windows and doors left open. Somehow guessed what I was wearing. Thought it was all some sort of weird prank. It was just a bunch of nonsense. It almost felt like he was in a night terror or hallucinating or I don't know, something. Makes me feel sick even thinking about it.
When visiting him, he gifted me a sketch. Would you look at it for me? Does this mean anything to you?
I'm sorry. My head just started pounding. It means nothing to me. I'm sorry, I need to cut this short. I'm not feeling well.
Please, anything you can tell me would be invaluable to this investigation.
No. Please. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
As can be heard, listeners, mystery is afoot. If you or any of your associates have information regarding what happened in Outworld Alliance, please reach out to us. We are checking every lead and won't stop the hunt until we have the answers we all deserve. This is Nathaniel Smithson with INN, signing out.
Well, what happened? In a recent game taking place on Atlas's table at Command Zone Games and Hobbies in California, some brazen warriors were brave enough to challenge the Black Marauder in our hunt of the Black Marauder game mode. So how did it happen? We've mentioned it before, but one of the grandest game modes BungleTech's created is our Hunt of the Black Marauder game mode. It has a lot of crazy fun stuff in it. It leverages a custom initiative deck for the Black Marauder, and of course, all of its resources are shared in our BattleTech podcast content creator public resource, linked in our episode descriptions. Atlas's crew managed to claim a victory in this one, and trust me when I say that is no easy feat. The Black Marauder is both an unpredictable and cruel opponent to face. It is the BattleTech equivalent of hunting a honey badger when only armed with combat knives. Across Atlas's game, he shared a lot of unique moments, such as the Black Marauder ruthlessly destroying a Hunchback 2C with 2 PPCs to the head, the Black Marauder cloaking itself in a quagmire of insidious smoke, making it impossible to hit, the Black Marauder teleporting across the map to close off the escape route of the opposing lance, the Black Marauder nearly spawning an abomination of itself, doubling its threat on the battlefield, and more. If you haven't had a chance yet, aren't faint of heart, and are looking for a game mode loyally inspired by the lore of the Black Marauder, make sure to check out our resources linked in the episode description and let us know how it goes.
This is Professor Michael presenting The Sphere We Live In. We're continuing now with our look back on the legendary career of announcer Randy Race. He was a longtime staple of the fighting leagues on both Hardcore and later Solaris, and for many, he was the voice of mixed martial arts. But despite his long and successful career, it was always hard to overshadow the moment that thrust him into the limelight. That legendary footage of his chameleon, alone and surrounded by Blakist battlesuits, fighting without weapons using only his mech's limbs, grasping one of the red and gold suits with both hands, and then, as one onlooker described it, he tore it apart like a Christmas cracker. Now you know about the sphere we live in.
Secondary objective, rule check discovery segment. Initiating.
Welcome back, everybody, to our rule mistake discovery segment. I'm sorry that my introduction of this segment will be inadequate in comparison to Michael's glorious introduction in our first segment, but I'll do what I can. We are back with the hardest man in BattleTech, Denham Hardman, and the most sensual man we know, Michael, to discuss some rule mistakes, and today we have a few. So first, we're going to discuss a rule mistake that a Loremaster has made. Is it possible? Is it possible? It is possible. Denham, walk us through your mistake.
All right, I was not a Loremaster back in this time. Since then, I have learned. No, it's not even a huge mistake. It's just BattleTech was so new, and we were playing a lot of other games, and doubles are always important, and double sixes are the most important. So we just assumed that no matter the odds, rolling double sixes was always going to hit. So the worst odds you could get for any shot, you know, you've got a Gauss rifle from across the map, even though it's out of range, you're going to take that shot because you need, you know, a 1 in 36 chance. You can roll double sixes. I swore that I saw it in the rule book. Obviously, I did not. That has never been a rule in there. I know some places have it house ruled, but we thought that that was the rule. And some pretty important fights were actually decided with that 1 in 36 chance.
This is one I can sort of understand because, you know, I'm like an old tabletop RPG player, D&D. I was used to the, like, if you surround a warrior with 20 level 1 commoners, then at least one of them will probably get through no matter what.
Damn, you just got to roll that 20. Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to roll that 20. So, you know, if I was told that double sixes was always a hit, I'd be like, yeah, I guess.
It makes sense. It's wrong, but it makes sense.
And the thing is, visually, this makes sense too. Like, let's say a mech, you know, has jumped into heavy woods. It's a spider. Okay, it has a jump modifier of, let's say it's 5 because it used indirect jumping or whatever, and it lands heavy wood. So it's 7 to hit already. And then I jumped. I'm 10 and my gunnery is 3. Oh, I'm already at 13. Oh, but it's right in front of me. I can see the spider. I should, in theory, be able to get a chance to hit it. So we actually played with this. We played with it as a house rule because we thought it made sense. But because we played with glancing blows, our rule was you can always glancing blow on a 12. That's the rule in short. We actually dropped this from our game first after we listened to an episode of the Mechbay in which they were discussing this and saying it was actually a bad rule. And also we played it with some other people who were from a different group and they hated it as well. And I realized that one thing that really sucks about this rule is even though it sort of theoretically makes sense, if you have, you know, line of sight and you're within range and all that stuff, it's that some people will start relying on it. They'll think to themselves, well, I always have a chance to hit on 12s. But if that's a strategy decision you're making, you're already making a bad strategy decision. You should never hope for the 12, right? The 12 should be a nice bonus that comes around every once in a while. And so I found that in our games, when this was playing as a house rule, lots of times you'd see people that would just commit to their strategy, even though it wasn't working, just because they had the chance to hit. And if they didn't have that chance to hit, it would have forced them to change their strategy.
Right. It's the Warhammer offense where your goal is to roll as many dice as possible, and eventually you're going to get enough sixes to win. It's a bad strategy.
And it makes for like really weird fights because like you might choose just like, oh yeah, you know, I'll just stay back here. You know, I got a PPC. I got no ammo concerns. I'll just keep lobbing PPCs. 3% chance to hit, which like if I just, I don't know, if I had a firearm and I just fired wildly in some direction, I don't think I would have like a 3% chance to hit someone at 2 kilometers. Like, I think it understates how challenging actually hitting something should be.
Right. Less realistic. And we know that BattleTech is nothing if not realistic in all aspects.
And well, one thing I think is sort of funny is that BattleTech is a game of strategy and a game of chance. Obviously, we all know that chance plays a huge factor in BattleTech, but it's primarily a game of strategy. It's not primarily a game of chance. And when you have a rule like this, it sort of makes the game feel like it's leaning a little bit more in the direction of chance rather than the direction of strategy. People always feel bummed out the most when they're playing BattleTech and when they feel like they couldn't have done anything because their rolls were so bad. I couldn't do anything because my rolls are so bad. But that, I think, is the wrong way to look at it. Like, don't get me wrong, your rolls are going to screw you over, but you should still be able to see the path to victory via your strategy, right? Like, you should still be, it's too bad my strategy didn't work out. This one's a fun one. It's a fun one. If anyone else is using this or has this misconception, let us know.
It's nice you use the word misconception. It is so popular in people who are like, I'm sure that's a rule, that it is in the common misconceptions section of the Battle Mech manual.
That's crazy. I guess it just, as Michael says, it just connects to the old like D&D roots,
Yep.
A critical hit's a critical hit sort of thing. Cool. All right, well, let's go to our next rule mistake. This one is submitted by one of our patrons, RetroLazer, and I'm just going to read exactly what he was doing, and then we'll break it down. And this I also think is quite a common one. So here's what RetroLazer says. We were taking the highest height out of the jump MP. If you wanted to jump 3 hexes and clear a height 4, you needed 7 MP, which made jumping much less good.
I mean, I think jumping could be less good.
Hey man, jumping jack is getting nerfed. That's all you need to know, and because it's getting nerfed, jumping is going to be balanced again. It's just because of damned jumping jack, man.
I don't know. You can jump pretty far sometimes. Like, this is something that you'd feel this a lot less if you were using, like, a tiny little clan mech with, like, a 13 jump range or whatever. They'd be like, hey, I got to jump over a mountain. No big problem. But it would suck if you were in, like, my blackjack, it can jump 3.
Like we're talking about with BattleTech being, it's an abstraction, really. BattleTech is a game of abstraction. I mean, on the map, if you're playing on the tabletop, the mech, the map, and the terrain are all 3 different scales. So you've got to deal with all of that. And so with jumping, there is no parabolic arc. It's like you jump straight up, you go straight across, and you drop straight down because it's an abstraction.
Just so we can be clear on the rule, what that means is if you've jumped 5, when you jump, you're always going up to that height of jump 5, or you always have the capacity to at least. So you don't need to worry about expending different MP for height. That is just basically the maximum height you can go. All you have to worry about is distance. So if you have 5 jump, you can go 5 hexes at a maximum height of 5.
Yep.
And there's no it's not like, if I go only 2 height, can I go 8 instead? No, it's simplified. It's 5 and 5. And so basically what RetroLazer was doing is he was taking the height and minusing it off the distance he could jump. So if there was, let's use Michael's example, there's a mountain of 5, he's a jump of 13, he could only move 8 hexes because he'd have to get to that height and it would change his range, right? Which would make him only a +4 to hit.
A jump of 8 is a +4, yeah.
Only a +4 instead of a +6, I think it would be, right? Yeah.
Well, 13, 10 is 5, +1 for the jump.
6, yeah.
Or 10 is 4, yeah, because it goes 7.
Oh, 10 is 4 or 5, yeah, sorry.
So it's 5.
Yeah.
You'd have to jump 20. You'd have to jump really high, really far, like 18 to get a 6. You'd have to jump 18 to get a 6.
This is one of those mistakes that's like really understandable for how it happens, because the book sort of explains that, you need to expend movement points to move, and you need to have enough jump points to get over the mountain. You must have more jump points than the height that you're going over. So it's only a small thing to say, you need to spend those jump points to get over, and you need to spend those jump points to move a certain distance. So.
Right, but also a hex is 30 meters wide, but a height level is only like 5 or 6 meters tall. So 5 height is not the same as 5 is 5 hexes.
That's the sort of thing that I don't think of. I sort of think in like D&D like cubes.
Right.
But yeah, that's a good point, because otherwise things would be very tall. 2-story building, 60 meters tall.
And I think this is actually a relatively common mistake.
Yeah, as a CTT person, I teach a lot of new games to new people, and it is one of the most common beginner questions is do I have to jump, spend that amount of jump to get up? So it's super common. I can understand why it would confuse people, but yeah, that's just not how it works.
Very cool. Okay, well, that's 2 rule mistakes down. And now we're going to something that might get a little bit political, listeners. So
Things are going to get heated.
things are going to get heated. Okay? I've already got Denham to promise to be on his best behavior.
I promise no such thing. I signed nothing.
So as you know, last episode, we were talking about how I used to have the misconception that when your side torso was blown off, if engines were in there, they didn't get blown up. And when I was trying to look up how I believed this, I looked into the BattleMech manual and I ended up feeling correct. I was like, technically I am right. The BattleMech manual has phrased this incorrectly. So obviously, if your side torso gets blown off and you have engines in there, they get blown off. They count as critical hits. It counts towards your mech destruction, okay? The last episode, I was saying that technically that's not what the BattleMech manual says. Denham got back to me after listening to our episode with a detailed list of constructive, not criticism, wisdom. He came back to me with his wisdom as a Loremaster.
Just old school rules, Lorian.
And so, first, it was a really good find. In Total Warfare, it's blatantly stated that if a side torso gets blown off, the engine is critical hit. So it's not an issue with Total Warfare at all. So it's only something that I argue could be misinterpreted in the BattleMech manual. And Denham and I talked about this for a long time, and he gave me some examples. So Denham, what do you believe? What do you believe? Don't let me speak for you, Loremaster. Don't let me take the Loremaster voice.
Yeah, if you look up destroying a mech in the BattleMech manual, and if you just read the first sentence in it and don't take any other, like if you just take that sentence, you're like, how do I destroy a mech? You look up destroying a mech and you read the first sentence and you have no preconceived anything else and just take it literally verbatim. I don't think there is any question at all that side torso engines count as criticals, even if, here, let me read it to you. It says destroying a mech. A mech is considered destroyed and out of the game if its MechWarrior dies or the mech suffers 3 engine hits. Remember to count engine slots in the side torsos if that torso is destroyed. So it says to destroy a mech, it needs to suffer 3 engine hits. And if a torso is destroyed, those engine slots in that torso count. So if you don't take anything and just read that for what it is, it says, I don't care if they're considered critical hit or not. They count towards engine destruction. And that's my point, is that it doesn't care if it's technically an engine crit or not. If it's in the torso and the torso is destroyed, those count toward the 3 engine hits.
And so what's fun about this find and this interpretation is, so I agree with Denham 100%. If we just take that line, it's 100. Well, it's not 100% clear, but it's like 99.9% clear to me. It's the only logical way to interpret it. My interpretation comes from it being from what it says specifically about an engine, a shielding for it to be destroyed requires a critical hit. And that's in a different section. But what I found really interesting about our conversation and the topic about rule lawyering, if you look at everything holistically in the book, you can still side with Denham's version. And I think it comes down to how you imagine the word count is being used. And if you imagine the word count is being used as in like to actually count to add, then it's 100% Denham's interpretation. But if you imagine it like count as in consider, which is how I was interpreting it, then you can make an argument for the other side. So
English.
Yes. I love little stuff like this. So first, just to emphasize again, it is very clear that if your side torso gets destroyed, those engines count as their critical hit. It counts toward the destruction of your mech.
This argument was definitely not about what do the rules intend. Like, the intent of the rule is 100% clear. This was an argument about parsing the rule and what exactly does the rule say, rules as written. Raw, is there any ambiguity in this at all? And I think I can argue it 100% that rules as written, it is very clear that the torsos count as engine destruction. But the intent was never in doubt.
So based on the BMM alone, you can expect a future lawsuit, Hardman versus Hunt, to go to the Supreme Court of Canada to discuss this. We'll handle it in Canada, my court, home court advantage.
Nathan, it will never make it to trial. You will 100% settle. I promise. That's how it works.
You'll 100% settle it in the ring.
In the ring.
This is what the clans are all about, right here. Trial. Yep, we're going to... yes.
A healthy compromise. So, Michael, what do you think about this whole thing? I know that when I was explaining the BMM, you were on the fence. And once again, we know what the real rule is. But now with Denham, the Loremaster, on your side, what do you think? What do you think, Michael? What's going on? What's going on in your head? Your crazy, beautiful head. What are your thoughts? Tell us your thoughts.
I mean, I'm still with Denham here. I'm just glad to have some more munitions from the books.
Why am I always alone on this side over here? I'll take you both on at the trial at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael, he's going to do the insanity defense again, isn't he?
It's the only reliable one.
Can you plead an insanity defense at a trial by combat? Does that work?
Ask any Jade Falcon.
Awesome. Okay, well, this was super fun, honestly. So I had a big blast in our primary segment, a big blast in our rule check discovery.
Nathan, big blasting all over the place.
Big blasting all over the place, anime style. Denham, I'm so glad to get you on. We've been, we've done some collaboration behind the scenes. We've been chatting. It's one of my goals to have you here. So thank you for being here, for honoring us with your time, your wisdom, your patience, and for helping us with stuff behind the scenes and just offering your thoughts on things. It's been really, it's been a blast.
It was my pleasure. Michael, very good getting to know you. Nate, we got to do it again.
All right. Well then, everybody, on to our next segment.
This is Professor Michael with Your Sphere Today. Scandal continues to rock the already struggling hardcore Ultimate Fighting League as new accusations have been leveled at starfighter Terrible Tori, suggesting that he had entered illegally as an unenhanced human, but was actually a Hell's Horses elemental. Tori's team has responded saying that the accusation is unfounded, and that the dishonor associated with a clan warrior abandoning their post makes the accusation laughable. The next season of the HUFL will introduce new full-body tissue composition scans for all competitors, but critics say the types of testing being proposed are not sufficient to detect clan-level genetic manipulation. Chairwoman Lasorta has declined to comment at this time. Now on to more of Your Sphere Today.
Tertiary objective. Stories of the Inner Sphere segment. Initiating.
Begin record. Comstar intelligence briefing. ILC 158. Security classification TS. Deny Lao Centrella. Seng Xiao Deny Lao Centrella began her life believing she was the third child of Sun Tzu Lao, the most successful chancellor the Capellan Confederation had produced in centuries. The reality that she was the product of incest between her brother Daoshen and sister Issei Centrella Lao was revealed to her near her 30th birthday. It is a trauma that she struggles with to this day. Very few people know the truth, and it is a secret Denai keeps as tightly as any. When she was 19, Denai, anxious to be out from the shadow of her more powerful siblings, journeyed to Solaris 7 to fight in the games, piloting perhaps the most famous battle mech in the Inner Sphere, Kai Aller Lao's Yen Lo Wang. She fought her way into the Grand Tournament, winning 4 matches before falling, but was ultimately recalled to serve in the Capellan Confederation Armed Forces as an officer in the 2nd McCarran's Armored Cavalry. Since then, as the Inner Sphere fell back into warfare following Grey Monday, Denai has made a name for herself. She traveled to Terra for Victor Steiner Davian's funeral, where she met Caleb Davian, heir to the throne of the Federated Suns. The two quickly formed a flirtatious relationship that they carried on even after realizing who one another were. They both knew the relationship could go nowhere, or at least Denai did. She discovered Caleb had other plans when he raped her in the wilds of New Hessen. The injuries Denai has sustained to her self-image have given her a mild case of post-traumatic stress disorder. Though she has largely learned to control it, her PTSD manifests often in outbursts of emotion, hypervigilance, and an obsessive need to control the details of her personal space. She has wisely kept this need from transferring to her military duties, but they still manifest from time to time. Since then, Denai has become a powerful woman, driven by an almost obsessive need to excel at whatever she does. She rose to command the 2nd McCarran's Armored Cavalry during the border wars with the Federated Suns, twice fighting Julian Davian and twice negotiating peace. She nearly killed the Davian prince on New Syrtis before withdrawing to marshal the Confederation against the Republic. After New Syrtis, Denai was named Duchess of Castrovia, a world often held by the heir to the Capellan Chancellorship. She also made the acquaintance of the late Lady Wilhelmina Lau of the Capella Laos, who taught her the duties of being a member of the Sheng nobility. When the Fortress Republic wall came down, she led her regiment and others to the Republic Worlds of Hall, where she destroyed the defending battalions of the 14th Principes Guards and established a nascent Capellan government. Afterward, she helped reclaim liberty before being recalled to Confederation space. As a mech warrior, Denai has few equals. Most attribute her failure to win the Grand Championship on Solaris due to inexperience at the time, not lack of skill. Though she now moves in larger circles than a mech gladiator, the skills of presentation and self-control she learned on Solaris are holding her in good stead. She has become the de facto, if not stated, successor of her brother, Dao Shen Lao, and the experience she has gained integrating former Republic worlds into the Confederation is preparing her well for the eventual duties of the Chancellorship. For almost her entire career... Pause record. Lex blood. Start record at time code 98431. For almost her entire career, Denai fought in the famous Centurion Yen Lo Wang. It had been her cousin's mech, and when she followed in his footsteps on the game world, it helped her to victory. She piloted the duelist-style mech for 2 more decades, but sent it back to Kai's family after the whole campaign of 3149. Instead, adopting a newly built 75-ton Black Knight. Fully kitted out with clan tech weaponry, Denai's Black Knight harkens back to the original Star League configurations. Extended range energy weapons, backed up with a targeting computer, make the mech an assassin on the battlefield. But Denai chose it primarily for its utility as a command vehicle. Endo-composite structure and a light fusion engine allow it to carry an incredible 20 double heatsinks. In action on Liberty, and afterward, the skill with lasers that Denai learned at the controls of Yenlo Wang made her deadly in her new ride. When her command lance was ambushed by a company of Republic armor, she fired repeated salvos from her ERPPC and a pair of ER large lasers with phenomenal accuracy, crippling 3 Zibbler hover tanks before they could even reach engagement range. Many of her officers urged Denai to adopt a more traditional Capellan mech. One of them even going so far as to offer his own Tianzong. But Denai demurred. Instead, she chose the Black Knight for its symbolism. It is immediately recognizable on the field as a commander's mech, and much to the chagrin of her command lance, she gave the mech a name that would remind her of her duty to the state. She named it Julian. End Comstar Intelligence Briefing, ILC 158. Initiate archive, encryption, and transmission. Authority A793-L5. This has been a sample reading of one of the bios found in the BattleTech Legends book. The reading this month was selected by our Loremaster patrons. Just one way our patrons directly influence our podcast. And that brings us to an end of another deployment of BungleTech. And boy, was this one as cool as chopping through a flaming block of ice. Which I hear is how our venerable patron Loremasters MagnumDanger and RetroLazer start and end each day. Ask them for a demo sometime. I'm sure they'll be willing to show you the good old hiya. As always, you can find us via Discord, email, Twitter, and now Patreon, all linked in the description. Thank you again to all our Patreon supporters. You are the fusion in our engine that keeps us pushing through that damned moonfog. If you aren't a patron and are interested in supporting us and grabbing exclusive BungleTech merchandise, prizes, and participation opportunities, make sure to check us out on Patreon. Until next time, MechWarriors, good fortunes on the battlefield. Selah.
All podcast objectives complete. Podcast shutdown sequence initiated.